Hey friends, so we're kicking it old school today. I'm going back to my very first book series and we're gonna paint right in it. Painterly Days Flowers. That's right, the best-selling book of my entire career. And you've been asking for it. You've been asking me to paint in my books and I'm answering. So do you wanna paint with me? Come on, let's go. All right, friends, today we are painting in Painterly Days. Here she is. Open it up, take a look here. Gosh, I can't believe this book has been around for so long. I'm so excited to paint in this for you. If you have this book in front of you, friends, great, paint along with me. But if you don't have this book, that's okay. This video can still be of value to you. You can learn about the techniques that I'm using. Here's a few pages that I painted back in 2016. Can you believe that? Anyway, just know that you can still learn a lot from what we're going to go over today and what we're going to review. All right, let's get down to it. So I am using my handmade watercolors today. You can see them on the right-hand side there. I'm going to paint right in the book. The book's paper is what I would call kind of an in-between cold press, which is textured, and hot press, which is not textured. So these pages are definitely on the smoother side. But any of the techniques that we go over today will certainly work on any type of watercolor paper. And I'm just flipping through here to see, gosh, I don't know. I haven't looked at some of these pages in so long, and I'm just not sure what I want to paint. Okay, let's do the poppies. Friends, if you've been with me for a while, you know that poppies are my absolute favorite flower on the planet. Okay, so make sure you have some clean water. I'm going to be using the dagger brush today. You know me and the dagger. I rarely use anything else. I have like 6 brushes that I use on a regular basis. And of course, the dagger is my favorite. So I'm going to start here with the wet on wet technique, and I'm using clean-ish water and just wetting the page in the specific shape of the flower. And this is a great way to start any painting, really. I'm going to pull some yellow here. I'm going around the center and just with a soft touch adding that yellow. I'm going to grab a little green. I did rinse my brush in between, but you really don't have to, but I chose to for whatever reason. And I'm just adding that green around the outer edge. So what we're going to do today is a technique. It's kind of like a fast paint technique, and it's where you use wet on dry, wet on wet, and you quickly fill a lot of space. And so what I'm doing here is wet on, well, let's call it wet on damp, because things have dried a little bit since I first laid down that water. And I'm just adding in different shades of pink from this palette. You use the pink that you love. And just keep moving along. Don't worry if you bump into that yellow that you already laid down. Let them bleed together. It's lovely. If you feel like your brush is drying out, grab a little more color. All right, keep it going here. I'm going right around the edge, and I am literally just dabbing in color. I'm loading my brush with different pinks. If I want to smooth things out more, I will grab a little bit of clean water and bring it back to the page. And now moving right down into this next poppy, and I'm doing wet on dry. Notice I didn't wet the page first with clean water. My page is now becoming wet because of the pigment I'm adding, but this is still considered wet on dry. Going in with the green, notice I didn't clean my brush there, but now I'm cleaning it. And I'm just going to keep moving on. Different flowers. Woo, that was a lot of paint there, but that's okay. Keep it moving. The beautiful thing about this dagger brush, friends, is that depending on the angle that you hold this brush, and you'll get more familiar with that as you use it, you can so effortlessly just fill in shapes. It's just the perfect brush for these watercoloring books. And again, I'm going back and forth, adding different pinks. This is a very limited palette. My handmade watercolor palette is only 12 pigments, so I'm really keeping it simple for this session. And I'm just going to keep moving around the page. I am pretty used to being careful of not getting my hand into the wet areas of my painting. If you're not, if that's something you struggle with, I still screw up and I still get the side of my hand in my wet painting, and it's annoying and frustrating. But if you want to avoid that, you can start painting from the left. Obviously, if you're right-handed, start painting from the left and go to the right. And that way your hand is always out of the way of what you just painted. And of course, just make the opposite true if you are left-handed. All right, look at this poppy here, friends. I'm bringing in the yellows, I'm bringing in the pinks, I'm letting them blend together, and that was wet on dry again. And now remember, if you want to blend two colors that are side by side, the easiest way to do that, in my opinion, is just add water and let them blend, blend, blend. Let's zoom in here so you can get a better look at what I've got going on, and I want to show you some of these techniques closer up, friends. So fun. I'm going to give you a closer look at this palette, but I want to show you how I'm grabbing color. I literally go from one pan to the other and I don't stress about it. Notice this whole time, I have not actually mixed any color on a palette. Look at that effect you get. I dipped into the yellow and then I dipped into a pink. I'm not going to tell you which yellow or which pink. You use what you have. And then I just started painting. Look at that. See? Beautiful. Now rinse my brush and I'm going to come on over with some water and just blend it out to the edge. Change the angle of that dagger just a little bit and watch it fill that shape beautifully. Look at that. I am not one, I don't really like to have the same amount of pigment everywhere. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not like a super smooth painter. I like texture, I like things uneven. So you're not gonna see me doing a ton of blending. All right, keep going here in the center with the green. Wasn't that so fun? If you need to kind of pause and rewind, feel free, friends, because that was so gorgeous. Let me say this. I told you earlier that this was going to be more of a quick painting type of situation where you cover a lot of ground, so to speak, in a short amount of time. Now, this can be kind of the groundwork that you lay for more layering that you do after this first layer is dry. And we're going to do a little bit of that. But honestly, this kind of fast and loose, wet and wet, get in, get out, get her done can create a beautiful painting really quickly that you can be really satisfied with. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand that a successful painting, a quote, done painting, a complete painting, doesn't mean that the painting has a ton of detail and layer after layer after layer. The painting is complete and successful and done with when it sits beautifully in your soul. When you take that breath and you're like, I love this. This is beautiful. And you decide to push it away and stop. That is when the painting's done. There is no right or wrong when it comes to the level of detail, the number of layers that you choose to add to your painting. There's no rule. There's no hard and fast rule, friends. So I'm just continuing on here. I love poppy pods. They are so fun to paint. I'm using just some greens, very light touch. I'm holding the dagger brush almost perpendicular to the page when I'm doing some of those stem details. And it's just a way to get a little bit more control while still having enough of that fluid gestural quality that your hand needs to get those beautiful serpentine kind of shapes. Here we go. Wet on dry, a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow. Friends, remember, I am literally grabbing a color, let's say yellow in this case, and then dipping right into another color, green in this case. And I'm bringing it right over to the page. I am not, when you see my hand go off screen, I am not mixing on that palette, friends. I am not. I am not against mixing color, and I've got a video coming up just about this. I'm not against mixing color on a palette. There's no shame in that, but there's so much freedom to be had in just letting that go, letting that whole color mixing piece of the puzzle go for some amount of time. All right, friends, I'm going to speed this up a little and let you just take it all in, because we're using the same techniques again and again as we go here. Wet on dry, whether we're starting the wet with color on the page or water on the page, and then wet on wet and letting those colors mingle. All right, friends, we are going to start to add just a layer, one additional layer of color. Using the tip of this dagger, I'm going to go in from the center and start to make some linear brush strokes. I can also go in to the other flowers. Don't feel like you have to finish one whole flower with this layer of detail. You can bounce around, you can bop around. This is your painting, friends. You do you. You can increase the pressure on your brush to create a thicker line, and then decrease the pressure, lift off the page even more to get a thinner line. Watch what I'm doing here. You can work from the center of the flower out, creating these beautiful thin lines, or you can work in the opposite direction. Just know that usually where you first place your brush is where the thickest part of the stroke will be. That's the natural tendency. So just know that. So usually I work from the center of the flower out to the tips of the petals, because I want the center of the flower to be more kind of structural and bold. Therefore, that's where I want my thicker lines. And then as I move out to the edge of the petal with those linear lines, just like that, things thin out. Now, you can still get a thin line going in the opposite direction, but that's a topic for a whole other video. We'll get there. Look at that. Now, if any of the strokes that you put down, these linear detail strokes, feel like they're just too heavy, you're not loving it, just clean your brush really well, grab some water, clean, crystal clean water, and blend. Lay some water on top of those strokes and blend them with a very soft touch, and they'll kind of soften or completely disappear. So give that a whirl. If you lay down some strokes that you're just not loving, you can always smooth them out and soften their effect. We're just going to continue on here, friends, with more detailing. This is as detailed as I'm going to get on this page. Now, I didn't finish the whole page because I want you to continue on this page. I want you to enjoy the freedom of figuring out what color you're going to use next, how and when and where. The choice is yours. You're going to use the same techniques. As you continue painting this page, friends, feel free to rewind and rewatch how I combine colors, where I use yellow, where I use pink, where I use green, where I use, and on and on and on. Literally, I've used like 5 colors on this page. But as you finish this page, if you're painting along with me in your book, I want you to do you. Hear me. I want you to finish the page in the way that feels good and right to you. Now see, on that yellow flower, I am actually adding detail with a bit of like an orange, and it gives more contrast, more punchiness. All right, we're gonna just keep moving here. All right, friends, this was such a blast. What are we taking away from our session today? Fast and loose. Don't feel like you have to finish the whole page all in one sitting. Don't worry about mixing on a palette. Limit the colors you use. These are all ways that you can create a stress-free, blissful painting experience. I hope you enjoyed painting in my very first book that I ever had published. It was such a blast. I can't wait to respond to your comments. Please hit me up with questions. I am here for you. Happy painting, friends.